everyone know what time it is?
Ooh.
What time is it, Mike? Time for another 10v10. That's what we always do once the three of us.
That's how the saying goes.
Oh,
the
is
old
it?
proverb.
I gotta wake up, guys. Hold on. Okay,
I know,
now
right?
I'm ready.
Yeah, sorry, it's early. It's early. I wasn't trying to trick anyone. I was just saying it's time for another top 10v10. I am Mike.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Steph.
Decided to switch up the old intro.
Hey, you know
right?
why not?
We
were talking about we've done a bunch. We've done like this for like a year and a half, 2 years now. So it's like we've done a lot of these. Yeah,
I know. So welcome back. We are the three amigos at it again. We are pitting our opinions of games against that of the BoardGameGeek user base at large, as a whole. So what we usually do in this series is we choose a theme, or we choose we've done publishers, mechanics, all sorts of things, and then we can generate a list of like what we prefer from that, and then we can check different categories, families, themes, and things that are all categorized on BoardGameGeek. And we can get a ranking there, so we can see kind of the definitive ranking versus our ranking, and we see do we agree with what most people do? We usually kind of go around and about and do different things, but it's fun to see kind of how our tastes compare with others.
Indeed. So today, Steph, what are we talking about today?
Oh, we are talking about fantasy. I got my Game of Thrones and How to Train Your Dragon shirt on, so I'm all in the mood now.
I love it.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. Fantasy, sort of, we found out is. There's a lot of things that can qualify as fantasy. We think of typical Game of Thrones type stuff, but really anything that's not
set in the real world. So it's not set in the real world, but also isn't sci-fi, is fantasy, really.
It's fantastical, right?
It's a broader topic than I originally realized.
Yeah, so we're going to see kind of a wide range.
That falls in the category. That falls in the category. Oh my goodness. It's not just Game of Thrones.
Once you open up to any kind of anthropomorphized animals, you're like, oh, that's a lot of games there. Because you're like, because animals can't talk. That's a fantasy world. You're like,
raccoons do not actually run railroad enterprises.
That's we know
fantastical.
Of. It might be underground. We don't know. They might be in tunnels.
We just don't see their business and stuff.
So this is going to be our top 10 fantasy games versus BGG's top 10 fantasy games. So let's go and get into it with BGG's number 10. I almost said our number 10. It's BGG's number 10 first. We go last.
Yeah.
BGG likes fantasy, Mike.
BGG does love fantasy. Number 10 on their list is number 33 overall. So these are all going to be quite popular games.
Goodness.
It is Blood Rage.
Yeah.
Blood Rage is kind of perfect fantasy. It's Vikings fighting ice giants and things like that, and Yggdrasil. It's like classic fantasy
the Nordic
stuff.
gods and stuff like
classic
that.
Norse mythology stuff.
Yeah, so it's a kind of a big area control game. We've actually never been massive fans of Blood Rage. Steph, do you like Blood Rage?
I only played it the one time with a full 5-player game, and it was pretty slow. So I probably need to give it another shot, just because I liked what the card mechanics were doing. So yeah, that's one I should try again.
I agree with that. For me, the thing that's always come down to it is Blood Rage. You can get very good at. It's a high skill ceiling. What you're getting into, and you can start playing fairly easily. But with the card drafting, what the cards do, and how you should use them. The couple times I play, and I play so infrequently, it's always sort of my first game when I play, and I'm playing against someone who's just ready to smash me because I do not know what I'm doing with the cards.
Well, we were talking about this because we were talking about this recently on a stream, and someone mentioned a lot of games have. It's one of the things where if you're playing against a good player and you're new, you're gonna get destroyed. And people are like, well, that's the same as Terraforming Mars. You guys love Terraforming Mars. We're like, yeah, but in Terraforming Mars, you're not directly conflicting with each other. In Blood Rage, you're it's an area control game. You're fighting and kicking people out. Whereas Terraforming Mars, it's oh, you raised the oxygen way more than I could.
made more trees.
Darn, And so it's it doesn't feel, personally, it doesn't feel quite so that I got really destroyed there. That's
I'm always kind of intrigued by it. I kind of want to get good at it. We'll see.
Now I'm giving it a chance. I'm pretty cool. But it's still, I acknowledge that it is a good game.
Yeah. And it's number 10 on BoardGameGeek, number 33 overall. Classic game, kind of a modern classic. So let's go ahead and jump into our number 10.
Our number 10 is Tales of Glory at 2,568. So,
shame. It's a shame.
It's a shame. We talked about this all the way back in the top 10 games of 2019. I think it was number 10 there as well or something. But it's one that hasn't ever really caught on. But it's kind of classic little fantasy.
This is kind of like one of our like main evangelism games. Like we all have those games that like we feel like no one ever talks about. Well, we're going to talk about this game and get people to buy it and da da da. And so this has kind of always been our. Steph, do you have like an evangelism game? And what's yours?
I mean, I guess I could say Gingopolis, but it's probably more well known. But I guess that's the game that I've always pushed and loved the most.
And now it's finally coming back.
I
know, so right?
You can like actually people
That's
can get
good.
their hands
It's
on
great,
it after
right?
all you're talking about. You've got me crazy interested.
I know.
To the point where now it's available. I'm like, I need to get
Interesting.
that.
Gotta do that.
Steph speaks quite highly. But Tales of Glory is another one that's a kind of a cool, simple, like tile laying game.
Yeah, kind of
and-
tableau
and-
builder. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's all set in this kind of like sort of silly fantasy
Yeah, it's like
world. It's
generic
not,
fantasy.
you know, highly thematic or anything, but it's just it's nice.
Yeah, but it's a game where you have a set of tiles out in the middle of the board, and you have everyone. And there's 8 tiles out there, depending on the player count. It might be 6. But you
Right.
essentially have a set of cards that have the numbers on them, 1 through 8, and you're all secretly choosing which one you want.
Right.
And then you all put it out, so it's simultaneous selection. But then if 2 people choose the same number, or more than 2 people choose the same number. It goes by turn order. So then the person in turn order gets that tile, and then everyone else gets their tiles, and the people who tied then have to wait for everyone else to grab their tiles, and then they get to choose their tile.
leftovers.
So it's that kind of like that, oh God, I hope they don't go to the same place as me. Oh, I hope they don't choose the same thing as me because I really need that tile. And it's just about adjacency where you're trying to put things next to other things where it's like, there's like different places, and these places want to be next to these kinds of tiles. And so it's just kind of like a tile placement puzzle.
Yeah,
That's
nice little
ultimately
bonuses.
Yeah, it's very simple, but it works really, really well. And this is one of those games where like every time we introduce it to someone, they're always like, man, that was really good. That just worked. That was smooth. And it's kind of got this like very generic fantasy theme to it. It's called Tales of Glory, which is like the most generic name ever, to be completely honest. And so I feel like it just went straight under the radar, and it's really, really good. You should try it. We just always talk about this game. We're the only ones who talk about it, but it's great. I love Tales of Glory.
Well,
No one else
it's
talks about
worthy
it
of
too,
it
that's
because it is a really good game. I mean, I personally love simultaneous action selection, things like
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Because you're trying to like figure out what other people might want and do something different. But that's always drawn to me. I always love that.
Yeah, I agree. I like that it keeps the game kind of quick.
It's always
There's that
interesting,
tension
yeah.
there. And then that game is ultimately, I think you play like 10 rounds
Yeah,
of,
it's
of
so
tiles,
fast. That's the only thing. I wish it was
45
longer.
minutes.
Yeah,
I know. It's
I
like-
could go for more, like get a whole 4th era or something. But because of the simultaneous selection, it'll never be that long.
No.
Because you all reveal
You're
and then
doing
sort
stuff
of
on your
kind
own,
of
yeah.
do your own
You
thing.
can't
so,
mess with each other outside of that part of it. So
stealing
it's
each other's
like,
stuff. So yeah, it's a good one. So we like
Play
it.
it.
At least the 3 amigos like it. If no one else does, we will.
man, I'll buy it again.
We will like it
I'll
for
buy
everyone
again.
else.
I'll buy 2 copies. I don't care. I'll buy 5.
But that's our number 10. So let's get into number 9. So number 9 is ranked 31 overall, and I didn't think of it as fantasy, but it's because you're dwarves. It's Caverna, the cave farmers.
That's
a little
true.
dwarf.
I should have
I
probably
know.
been on this. I mean, what? I mean, I should have realized that was fantasy. My mistake.
I know. We kind of had the same thing when we saw it. We're like, is that fantasy? We're like, oh, you are dwarves.
With some of the
It's like-
expansion materials, things have.
then it gets definitely more
It's
fantasy.
a little more fantasy-ish now, but like in the base game, if you don't think about it, you're like, well, I'm just doing farming.
You're just
stuff,
farming,
and I
yeah.
happen
But you're
to
like,
farm in a
but you
cave.
are dwarves.
That's why you're mining out a cave. So it's like it makes sense.
It technically is fantasy, yeah.
You know, it's a brilliant
Again,
game.
fantasy is much broader than we thought. That's what we were kind of getting at the
I
beginning.
know.
We're like,
So
oh
it
yeah, I
costs-
guess that is fantasy.
It caught us off guard. But Steph, what do you like about Caverna? Because we know you're a fan.
Oh my god,
we love
it's
it
a
too.
10 out of 10 for me. I love Caverna. It's just endless possibilities of just trying new things, and it's just
That's
all
right.
out there for you, and you just have to go by what other people are doing and try and do something else so that there's stuff left for you when you need it.
That's all
Yeah.
you're hoping for. Yeah, it's you know, I that's one that I really embrace the kind of bigness of it.
Yeah.
Because it's so fun to try to get these different buildings and see how that maybe changes things. It's great. We don't have any of the expansion materials for it. I do want to incorporate that at some point.
Yeah.
There's so much to mine even in that humongous
Oh gosh,
base
we're
box.
nowhere near like having explored it yet. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it's just
classic.
it's one of those games where it's like every single time I play it, I'm like, man, I like this so much.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I would love to
Yeah.
play against Steph just to see how big the difference in scores
Oh,
are.
it's gotta be horrible.
It would be amazing to
She'll
watch.
outdo
You
both
probably
of us
would
put
do
together.
as well as me just because I haven't played it in a very long time.
Oh, you gotta
cool.
get to
So,
the table.
okay, if we agree that you don't play it until we all play it together next,
good.
then I'm down.
There we go,
But if you
down.
play even once, it's going to be over. But Caverna is number 9 for the Board Game Geek list. 31 overall.
choice.
Obviously, very well loved game.
Easily
Let's go
could have made
ahead.
our list, yeah.
Yeah, of course. It basically is our number 9 as well. We just forgot about it.
Yeah.
But it should be on our list. But we'll go ahead and jump into our number 9.
Our number 9 is 218 overall, called Seasons. Now, this is actually the first game that I thought of when I thought fantasy, just because I love Seasons, and it has this all whimsical art, and just like, it's obviously a fantasy world.
Yeah.
It's just such a great game. Dice drafting, resource collection, and card placement, tableau building, all the good things that I love. So.
And the chunkiest of all dice.
Oh my gosh,
Chunkiest
yeah.
of all dice.
The max chunk value.
And then if you
of
get the
those
board
dice.
game, the Geek Up bits, and you have chunky bits to match the chunky dice, and it's just
we gotta get
ridiculous.
chunky cards.
Yeah.
They're all tiles
Just really
now.
thick tiles.
Just the
this is
stack
like
is this big.
this is like one of the first games that we got like early on that was really kind of beautifully thematic and this kind of whole different world, and so it kind of like introduced us into fantastical themed games. And Seasons has been like well loved forever. It's
so good.
It's got a lot of great stuff. Like as Steph said, like all the mechanics going on like pair together really well, and then the art's just fantastic.
It's so good.
And yeah, it's like you're building magical items. You have familiars that can go into play, so it's just very rooted in its the
its
kingdom
world.
in which the game takes place.
Yeah, it's
cool.
just, it's great. You do a little bit of drafting at the beginning. As Steph said, it's like dice drafting, which is always nice, being like, I'm gonna take this one. And again, there's only a little bit. It's not like a ton. But it's just like, and it's trying to get the resources you need to put in cards, and those cards all do different stuff. And it's just, you can just pull off some really, because there's a billion cards, and then on top of that, if you get the expansion, that adds even more. So there's so many different combinations of cards together.
Awesome.
You're just building this kind of weird engine. It just works really well. It's gorgeous. It's awesome. It's just so darn good.
It's so good. This is the game that, it came out basically when I was pretty new to the, gaming scene, and so it's always held that position as like amazing game. But, if you haven't tried it, it is on Board Game Arena. I highly, highly recommend it. It's so good.
That's good to know. I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, it's one that like we came into early and has had a lot of staying power.
Yeah.
And I don't imagine it'll ever go anywhere.
Probably
'cause
not.
It's just like fun to play.
Yeah, we don't play it super often, a couple times a year, but it's like whenever we're like, God, this is good.
And this will be a good one for Board Game Arena because it'll kind of track and do stuff for you. This will be a great one for that. So do check it out on Board Game Arena. And that's our number 9, Seasons. Classic.
So good.
For being seasonal, it's an evergreen. It's always
It is.
it's a
We're
perennial
going into
game.
summer now, and you can be going into summer in that
being
game,
seasonal. That's right. Let's go ahead and jump into Board Game Geeks number 8. So number 8 from Board Game Geek is ranked 29 overall. It's about little animals building buildings. It's Everdell.
I didn't know this was ranked this high.
It's way up there.
I didn't know it was quite that high.
I don't know if the new Kickstarter Big Box maybe bumped it up
probably
or
hasn't
something,
heard
but
it,
it's
for sure,
been up there for a while. So Everdell is an awesome tableau building worker placement game that has like fantastic, beautiful art that is just like a cutesy world that when I first saw it, I was like fantasy. I was like, oh yeah, it's animals building like cranes. I'm like, that's not real life. That's fantastical. But it's just not like sword and shield stuff.
Yeah, it's not
That
your
kinda
kind of
opened up my
generic fantasy. I know,
mind.
yeah.
Yeah, but Everdell is an awesome, beautiful game where you're building out constructions and then critters, and critters can pair with constructions, and you're just kind of trying to like build the most like synergistic tableau of cards you can. But what does everyone else think of Everdell?
It's great. Steph?
I like it. I mean, I think it's pretty good. It's probably a bit long for my taste. All the games I play have been longer and overstayed its welcome, but
Interesting.
Okay.
but I mean, it's hard to argue with the beautiful art of Everdell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
the world building is great. Like it, and now with all the expansions, it kind of goes deeper, and they can go on adventures and stuff, all sorts of things. Most of which we haven't.
I would say one thing with Everdell in terms of the length, I don't mind the length, but one thing that can happen is like if you're just not playing a good game, or if you're newer, because you can actually end your game before other people do. And if someone is really good, they can kind of keep extending their turns. Sometimes you can be sitting there for like a minute while you're waiting for other people to like finish their game. Which can be that's happened to me where I'm just like, I just had a bad game and I was like, I'm done. And the person I'm playing with is like, I'm going to play for like 15 more minutes. And I'm like,
cool, I'm gonna
tight,
get a
tight,
drink and I'll
tight,
come
tight.
back.
I do like Everdell a lot though, yeah.
Yeah, respect. So, I mean, as do most people, it's number 8 on this list, 29 overall. So let's go ahead and jump into our number 8.
mana braid is 621. It's called Ex Libris. Ooh, all about books.
Books.
About books.
And this, again, you're like, oh, it's about books. But it's like, yeah, but it's very much set in a fantasy world because you are... You run your own library, but you run your library as like, you could be like a fire imp, you could be like a Bigfoot Sasquatch type creature, you could be a witch, you could be a gelatinous cube, you could be some weird trash golem, you know? It's like, it's very, very fantastical.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that drew us to it originally. We're like, oh, it's this kind of like cool game about a library. I actually like the theme of libraries in general. I think it's a really cool theme. And it's like this weird like fantasy library where you have like, you live in like a swamp. Your library's like in this swamp. And I'm like, that's kind of cool.
Manuals and spell books.
It's so cool, yeah. And so this is a game where it's all about just managing your library. You're getting these cards that have anywhere between like 2 to like 4 books on them. The books will have different genres, and they also will have different names on them. And so then you have to put them in your library, kind of in a tableau. You have to put them alphabetical and numerical because there's multiple A cards. So if there's like 10 A cards, you have to go A1 to A3 to A7. You can't go like A7 to A3.
Nice ordered
That's
library.
not in the right order. And so you're trying to get the books in the right order in your tableau, but then you can also build 3 lines of books, and that's like your shelf, and you want your shelf to be square because then it's like structurally sound. So that's something you're trying to go for. And then there's certain genres you're trying to go for, certain genres you're not trying to go for. There's just a lot to like manage in the game, and this is a game where both of us actually prefer it solo. It's my favorite solo game. I really, really, really love Ex Libris, especially solo. I think it's an outstanding solo game.
I think it serves it that's in a fantasy realm like setting.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it could get very dry.
Yes, it could get very decimals sometimes can dry up. Yeah. So, Steph, you like Ex Libris?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's always a nice puzzle. Though I haven't played it solo, so maybe I should try that.
It's
It's
nice.
great. It's tough.
Yeah, it's nice. It gives you this, like, in the game, you know, normally you kind of get more and more locations as the game progresses. In the solo, it's the inverse, where you'll have fewer and fewer as the rounds go. So you kind of have to, you know, prioritize, like, this is going to leave, so I need to use this building before it goes away. The different locations give you different abilities.
Yeah,
things,
and you're
so
playing against the public library,
Yeah.
which I think is funny. And so, capitalism, private libraries. No, but it's like, but you're playing against a public library, and every time a card gets discarded, whether you discard it or it gets discarded,
Game
it just
discards it,
goes
yeah.
to the public library. So they just will end up having like 3 or 4 times as many books as you by the end of the game.
But it's just chaos.
Yeah, but it's just wild. There's no, they don't care about alphabetizing. They don't care. It's very, very fun. It works really, really well solo.
Yeah, and it's actually a compelling opponent. So we do recommend you try it solo, but it's good in any way.
Ex Libris is great.
So I
Just
have,
an
I have a
interesting
question
game.
though. So
Yeah,
have you
yeah.
played the other new book game from Renegade called Athenium?
You have.
Athenium, yeah, I played it and I thought it was cool. It also does the puzzliness of the tiles and stuff. Did you like that one?
Yeah, I like that one. I just people might want to know about that. I mean, so I think they are very different, but similar theme, obviously.
Yes.
Right. Renegade Games is cornering the fantastical library market.
It's hot.
Athenium's cool because it's a card drafting game. And when you play a card, you get something, and then your neighbors to your left and right get something. So it creates a really interesting card drafting system, and then you're putting little books in order and stuff. So
Yeah.
I think both are great while being very different games.
Yeah, people are always comparing them. It's like they're not the same game. They just
Yeah.
happen to have a similar theme. Yeah.
But it's awesome. It's a good theme for games.
Yeah,
think.
I agree.
So-
I love it. I really
So
do.
check out either Athenium or Ex Libris. But Ex Libris is our official number 8. So let's go ahead and jump into Board Game Geeks number 7. Board Game Geeks number 7 is ranked 27 overall, and it is Root, aka Root. A woodland game of might and right. This is a fantastical game because it's all about animal warfare.
Yeah.
It's just like there's animal warfare in the real world, but there's not like birds who are like, we need to relive the Erie Dynasty and the Marquita cat. That's the fantastical.
Yeah,
thing.
you know.
But raccoons are
The raccoons are exactly how they are in real life.
exactly depicted in real life.
Exactly how they are in real life.
Straight up vagabonds. Yeah. So this is a game where it's an asymmetrical player game where everyone has the same goal to get to 30 points, but your faction you choose, whether you're the mice or you're the cat or whatever, you have a very different way of doing stuff
Yeah.
and getting your points. So you have the same goal, very different modes of getting there. And this is one that's like really interesting. We got very interested in this early on, sort of fell out of favor with it because it's just got a hard learning curve because
Yeah.
I can't simply learn the game and explain it to everyone because the game I'm going to play as the Marquita cat is different than Nix's as
Like,
the Erie Dynasty, the birds.
100% different, yeah.
So it's like a little hard, but now with the app, it's become kind of easy to play again because you can do tutorials for each specific faction, do challenges, and kind of build your way back up. So I'm super happy, and I've really been loving the Root app. I'm curious what y'all think about Root.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same boat. I like it, never as much as I want to, because you're just kind of relearning the game each time you play a new faction, and we just don't play it enough for us to like get all the factions down. And so like I'll just never love it as much as everyone else does because I just won't play it enough to get to that point.
So cool though.
Yeah. What about you, Steph?
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I think the learning curve is high, and I just don't have that kind of interest to dive deep. Same thing with Vast, where you have that different, like every player is a different faction, so it's impossible to teach it if you're not really invested in the game. So that it just, and you also really kind of need 4 players to have a really good game. So yeah, it's never gonna. I would play it again if somebody like knew what they were doing and could teach it really well. But I'm not really like gonna jump in. But I like that there is the option of the app. If people are interested, they can learn it that way. I think that's really great.
And then you can also always play a 4-player game, which is nice.
I just play against AIs and play a 4-player game, so you get that preferred experience and stuff. And now I would be more likely to play it in person because I am more familiar with the factions, but that would not have been possible without the app.
Yeah.
So I agree. Like for us, I think all 3 of us, we
I like playing different stuff.
Diversify our gameplay so much. It's hard to like really dive deep into any one,
it is.
like you would need to for Root. But it's a great game, obviously very impressive in its design.
Oh, it's great, yeah.
And why so many people love it. It's 27 overall.
It's crazy.
That's BoardGameGeek's number 7, so let's get into our number 7.
Our number 7 is 219. It is Dungeon Petz.
Dungeon Petz.
Goodness, these guys are so cute. They're
They
like
are.
the littlest, cutest creatures ever.
These adorable little pet monsters. Wouldn't you want all of them?
Yes.
They're adorable.
Yes, I do.
If you flip over the backside, they're little eggs.
It's great.
It's adorable.
The
wonderful.
This is a game where the theme is so integrated into this game, like into the everything about this theme is integrated both into mechanics and the art and just how everything is. But this is a game where it's kind of I was gonna say sequel to like Dungeon Lords or Dungeon Lords.
It's in the same world as
It's in the same world. And instead of playing Dungeon Lords, this time you're playing a pet owner because Dungeon Lords want these monster pets. So you're raising these little monster pets. You have a little pet shop, and you can get different kinds of monsters. You can raise them. They have all sorts of different needs. They need to play. They need to eat. They need to poop. They want to fight. They want to do like magic stuff. And so you have to like put them in pens that can hold them, or else they're gonna break out and like hurt people and stuff. But so you can go like, and then the main board is where you can go get food, you can go get new pens, you can get upgrades, you can get new pets. And it's got this really kind of cool worker placement system where you have a big group of imps. It's your whole family of imps. And you put them out in groups, and then once everyone reveals what groups they chose, the biggest group goes first because they can kind of like muscle their way into the city to get the stuff out there. So it's not necessarily like set turns.
Sort of like bidding your auction.
Yeah, you're kind of auctioning. It's very, very interesting, but it's kind of like, despite the fact that it's a very cute theme, it's like a pretty heavy game. It's got a lot going on, and it's one of those games where you have a lot to do, and you can't really do all of it. And so it's really, really fun though, and it's so cute. Steph, it's so cute.
It's so cute.
If you ever get stressed out, just look at the monsters' little faces.
It's great.
It's funny because I first played this like 8 years ago, and it's been on my shelf ever since because I don't want to get rid of it because it's so cute. And
that's fair.
But I also want to bring it back to the table to see, if I really enjoyed it as much as I did the first time. So I need to just do that.
Yeah, you gotta do it.
I hope you would enjoy it. I mean, it's for us. It's had some great staying power. There's a kind of like a shady street, like a Nocturne Alley expansion where you kind of can go and do some.
Yeah, it's like the back alley kind of thing. Yeah, it's like you do some black market kind of stuff.
Yeah, but it's a fun game. I mean, it's Vlaada Chvatil, and it's heavy and stuff, but it's like so buoyed by that theme, so it doesn't ever like drag you down.
This is a game that could be a slog, but because the theme is so light, it just kind of keeps you going. It's really good. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's just adorable. That's why it's on our list. Dungeon Petz. So let's go ahead and get into number 6, is it? For BoardGameGeek? BoardGameGeek. So number 6 is going up one whole step on the overall rankings to 26, and it's Mage Knight, the board game, the game that famously We haven't played.
We have not played this
We
game.
haven't played this one. But
Have you played this one, Steph?
everyone
I feel like
else
you
has.
have. Yes?
Yeah,
No?
it was long ago, and I remember really enjoying it. So I get why people like it. It's supposed to be like a great solo experience, though. So
That's what
maybe
I've
you
heard
guys should
too,
try
yeah.
it. If you play solo games, you should try it.
I'm curious, and this one's finally like coming back, right? Is this the one that WizKids is bringing back?
No, I think they already brought it back.
Oh, maybe it just got brought back.
At some point, yeah. I don't know.
I thought that was recent news.
I don't think so, but I
I've
could be
lost
wrong. I
all
don't know.
concept
I
of
don't.
time.
I don't keep track of Mage Knight news as well as I probably
You
should.
should, dude.
As probably as I probably should.
Shit, but it's a classic.
There's like a Mage Knight Ultimate Edition that came out at some point. I don't know when.
Oh, okay, maybe yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever been like famously out of print, but
No,
I
no.
thought WizKids bring it. Who knows?
But this is one that
Just
people
play
talk.
it.
Just play it.
We want to play it. We haven't gotten around to it. But yeah, it's one of those games that again, it's like it's been this high for a long time. People love this game. Again, Vlaada Chvatil again.
Right.
People talk about how good of a solo game is. I honestly don't know anything about the game, but I do want to try it at some point. But I know people love it, and that's why it's this
very
high on the list.
fantasy. I know it's a fantasy game.
It's a fantasy game.
based off this list.
You
But
know,
we definitely need to
move
try
the
it.
guy around, fight the monster, gain the stuff, and get your hand. So you have very limited cards, and using them, having powers on them is really great. But you don't want to use them all because you have very limited cards. So you have to manage your hand properly. It has a lot
like
of good features. I mean, a lot of good mechanics. So yeah, I get it.
I mean, to stick around for 10 years and be this high up, it's definitely got something going for it. So yeah, and that's why it's number 6 on the list of Board Game Geek in terms of fantasy games. Let's go ahead and jump in our number 6.
Our number 6 is 62 overall. Aeon's End.
Aeon's End.
No,
we
we're
picks up in
getting
the
up
top
there.
100,
We're
y'all.
getting up there, yeah.
Let's do it. All right, Aeon's End. Nick and I played very little of this. Steph, you've gone deep down
gone
in.
deep.
So
I deep dived
We'll let you
into
take
this
this one.
game.
Tell us all about Aeon's End.
Well, one, it's a deck builder, but it's cooperative. Has a really cool turn order mechanic where you're shuffling up cards. Maybe the Nemesis will go. Maybe you will go. Maybe the Nemesis will go twice in a row. Then you shuffle the cards and twice again. You're like, oh my god, we're so doomed. So you have to like manage what's happening with the bad guy and what you and everybody else at the table is doing. So you're working together to stop the Nemesis. And so I really got into this game by playing the Legacy game, and it was amazing.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh my god, I want it all. So ever since I've picked up all of the expansions and all of the different big boxed expansions, I guess. And so there's so much
stuff.
content. It's just like the Dominion with all that content. It's the same thing with Aeon's End. There's just so much content.
Yeah, the little bit we played, I really enjoyed. So, and it was literally one game. So I know I didn't even scratch the surface of it all and really figure out. But it was very cool. I just want to go. We had plans. Obviously, life plans changed, but we had plans in place to play this, and this is sort of our next, hopefully, kind of campaign endeavor with a buddy.
Yeah,
of ours. So
yeah.
maybe later this year or in 2022, certainly.
Yeah, because
We can
liked it a lot, but just COVID happened. So
but it's really good. So we're has piqued our interest, and that's why it's our number 6. Everybody. Aeon's End is well loved among the three amigos.
It's great. People love it.
So let's go ahead and jump into Board Game Geek number 5. Number 5 is Arkham Horror, the card game, ranked at 22 overall.
This game has just steadily kind of climbed. Climb.
It's done
People
very well.
love
It's
this
been
game.
supported so well for
Fantasy
long
Flight.
time
One thing
now.
to say about Fantasy Flight, they support their games. I'll give them that.
Yeah, so this is another collectible card game set in the kind of Cthulhu, H.P. Lovecraft, ever-expanding universe, it seems. And it's... a lot of people love this game. A lot of people like to solo this game because you kind of get taken through stories. I'm to understand. I can't remember, Steph, have you played this one?
I think so, right?
Yeah, I have played this one, and we played like the first scenario or the first mission or whatever. I don't, you know what
Tale
it is. But,
story, yeah.
You know, so you're working through like this campaign, and it's for very limited player counts, but solo and 2-player, I think maybe 3 players, but it's not more than 3.
But I think you need like 2 boxes to do more than like 2 players, don't you? I think that's what it is.
2 boxes.
okay.
You need like, because I know Lord of the Rings LCG is that way. I think if you want to play more than 2 players, you have to have 2 core boxes to do it.
Maybe that's the
be.
case.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's like it probably would be better at those
I think so,
lowest
God,
player counts anyway. Cause,
Absolutely.
it's might get long otherwise and stuff. Yeah. But you enjoyed it? Did you play it at 2-player then?
I liked it well enough. It wasn't really my cup of tea, I guess. There are other big campaign games I would rather play, like Pathfinder or something, but I get the appeal of it. I just I don't know. I'd rather be a one and done with the Arkham system, I guess.
Not racing to go back. That's fair. That's fair. This one, I think, kind of comes down to a little bit of a preferred theme. Yeah. Like we have Lord of the Rings, a living card game, because we're more into Lord of the Rings and stuff. And I know that there's some DNA overlap. So I think I'm with you there. If it's not really...
I'm not a huge Cthulhu fan, so I've never been drawn to this game because I don't really care about Arkham stuff. Yeah, it's just not really...
I would rather just play a big boxed Arkham game versus a big long campaign.
I think we're with you there. We'd rather play Eldritch Horror.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but obviously it's been very well loved, very well supported by Fantasy Flight, all the way to number 22 overall. So that's Arkham Horror at number 5, I think, or 4, 5, 5 for BoardGameGeek. Let's go ahead and get an R5. I never know what number we're on.
I know, whatever.
Never remember.
Our number 5 comes in at 103 overall, The Isle of Cats, which is hilarious because we were actually just talking before this, before we started filming, and I remember when this was my game of the year, 2019, before anybody knew about it, because I had played it in prototype form that year. And it was just number 7,527. So I'm this is going to go up. Nobody knows about it yet. And here we are.
All the way to 103. Probably will crack the top 100.
Oh, it'll crack. It's coming out of the expansion soon, so it'll crack the top 100. Yeah.
We have it on record in this very series you're watching now. On record calling it.
That's why you got to watch this series for years because our predictions come through.
Yeah, we always know what's up. We have our finger on the pulse of the industry there.
Stone Age. Game of the year, 2021.
So, you loved it all the way back then, Steph, and do you still enjoy it now?
Oh my goodness, yes, I love it. Yeah, I love drafting games, I love polyomino games, tile placement games, trying to puzzle it all out, getting the cards you need, and it's a great game. And I think there's actually an expansion coming out soon, so I'm very much excited for that, and oh my goodness.
Yeah, right here on BoardGameGeek, the designer of Isle of Cats has been doing kind of a reveal of the different modules in the expansion that are coming out, and going into the design, the idea, how he wanted to integrate with the base game. It's really fascinating to watch.
Well, one of the expansions is going to be new boats, which I'm just that's great. If nothing else, I'm I would love new boats for that game, just because it changed up. You can get kittens is going to be one of them, and I'm kittens is going to be great. Yeah. There's a roll and write coming out or something.
Explore and draw.
Whatever that is. So very excited.
Yeah, so it's going to be super cool. Isle of Cats, we love it. I love it solo. I like that in the box you can play family style where you get rid of some of the other things. It's just about filling your boat. So
the remote edition. Yeah. The remote edition's super good.
Isle of Cats is lots of ways to play. Isle of Cats is fantastic. We finally got to try it. We were a little late to the game, and it's just so good.
Yeah.
That's our number 5, Isle of Cats. It's so good. It continues to deliver. It just does a lot of great things. So let's go ahead and jump into BoardGameGeek's number 4. So number 4 is ranked 16 overall. We're getting into the well-loved games. It's Terra Mystica.
Oh, yeah.
Of course Terra Mystica has to be on this list.
People love it.
People love it. We don't know much about it. We still haven't played it. I know, Steph, you kind of prefer Gaia Project for a couple of reasons, but can you speak a little bit to Terra Mystica?
Yeah, so Terra Mystica was in my top 10 for a really long time. I loved Terra Mystica, but it can be a little harsh at times if you get totally cut off from everywhere you need to go, which is why I ended up loving Gaia Project a whole lot more, because it's much, much more difficult to get cut off because it's space. You can't really get cut off in space.
What are you going to do? You can't put up a roadblock. I'll just go around it. Screw your roadblock.
No, but when you explained that, we still haven't played either, but when you explained that was really gave me a lot of confidence to try Gaia Project. I want to try Terra Mystica, and I think you can play it on BGA.
Yeah.
So I do want to try that at some point as well, but Gaia Project, I'm that might be the thing I need to finally try one of those games. I'm okay, this seems a little less harsh. It's not so punishing, especially for someone who would be learning the game.
I don't want to mislead you. That's if you're playing a full 5-player game and it's really easy to get cut off, right? So if you're playing just 3 players, you're more likely to be able to spread out with ease and no problem. So you know what, you could learn it. I would probably not recommend it with 2 players, but I definitely think you should play Terra Mystica. It has a lot of fantastic mechanics going on. So it's not just all about the area control, but you are trying to build these little houses and build them up into big like settlements and forts and stuff. So you are trying to like city build and do all these things, get all your pieces on the board so you get more income, that kind of thing. So it's a really, really cool game. So I don't want it to mislead you, but you should definitely play it, and you should definitely play it.
Here, Steph hates it and thinks it's crap. You heard it here.
So just don't play it the full 5 player.
You heard it here.
It's not.
Just don't play it the full 5 player for your
both,
first game.
okay?
I know.
Both. I have both.
Gosh. That's right. That's right, Steph. You defend yourself. That is Terra Mystica, though. 16 overall. Super well loved. It is our number 4, or rather BoardGameGeek's number 4.
Really want to try it,
in this list, and we really want to try it. So let's go ahead and jump into our number 4.
Our number 4 will come to nobody's surprise. It is Lord of the Rings, Journey in Middle-earth at 89. I'm surprised this isn't higher on the BGG rankings. I'm not going to lie.
I'm actually surprised, too. And we find a way to bring it up on every list. Farming games. Journeys to Middle-earth. You're farming for orc heads.
Of course.
You know, nature games. You sometimes
Middle
are
Earth
the
is nothing
forest.
but nature.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This one finds our list.
I am
is
surprised.
odd that it's in the top 100. I guess it's not lowly ranked, but you kind of thought that it would have kept climbing higher than it has. But we like it, don't we?
Oh, yeah, it's great.
I mean, we always mention it because we're all big fans here, so...
Yeah.
So. It's like, I mean, come on. You're talking fantasy. All other fantasy is based off Lord of the Rings. I mean, and Lord of the Rings is based off other stuff too. But you know what I mean? Like, it's such a inspiration for other fantastical stories and things. So we
gotta have a Lord of the Rings game on here.
Gotta have a Lord of the Rings game on here. So we chose Journeys in Middle-earth because we just all of us love kind of the app integration of it, the sort of unfolding story. The fact that like you can make updates for the game and stories could change. You can replay the same scenario. It's not going to be identical necessarily. There's going to be little changes in the way stuff populates. It's a perfect blend of kind of technological, digital and analog.
Yeah.
It's just so fun.
It's so good.
So good.
It's great. It's just so good.
We talk about all of it.
We like it.
Watch all of our other videos. It'll come up.
No, it's fantastic. We highly recommend it. It's built off the Mansions of Madness kind of system. And
Mansions of Madness, I think, would have been number 11 on this list on BGG's. It would have been number 11 on BGG's as Mansions of Madness.
Right, so it's just outside the top 10 for this list, but obviously very well liked as well.
Yeah.
Journeys to Middle-earth is our number 4.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and jump into BoardGameGeek's number 3. Speaking of Lord of the Rings,
this is the game where we could have just put this list on.
We decided to go Journeys to Middle-earth because War of the Ring is your number 3, all the way at 13, which we quite love. Why? Lord of the Rings. It's Lord of the Rings in a box.
Again, we talk about it a lot.
It's great.
Now, out of curiosity, Steph, have you played the Battle of Five Armies game?
Yeah, it's not as good.
Okay. Okay, cool. I think I might have asked you that before because we haven't played. We always kind of heard it's not as good. So I was like, okay, cool.
I mean, you should play it because of your, fandom of the series. It should be on your list of games, to try out when you can. Though I played it, I liked it. I don't need to play it again.
Okay. Fair enough.
That's fine. Sometimes it's just a one and done. That's okay.
But War of the Ring is a big 2-player game. One player is the Shadow Army, one player is the Free People, and the Free People are trying to destroy the ring. The Shadow Army is trying to either capture the ring bearer or rather corrupt them to the point where they turn to the dark side, basically, or capture a whole bunch of settlements to win militarily. It's very, very cool. Both sides are pretty asymmetric in terms of what your goals are trying to do.
Right.
It's got tons of card play. All the cards are very thematic because you're I'm playing this card, and it has to do with Isengard because it's this part of the book that you're doing, and Treebeard's coming through, and it's awesome. So good. If you like Lord of the Rings, if you like kind of big war games, you got to try War of the Ring. It's just one of the greatest games.
It's a big one though.
Oh, it's a big. Oh yeah, it'll be an afternoon. Yeah, for sure.
But it's so epic. It's just beautifully done and very, very satisfying as a Lord of the Rings fan for sure.
Yeah.
That's War of the Ring. That's number 13 overall. Super classic, well loved. Yeah. Number 3 on this list. So let's go ahead and jump into our number 3.
Our number 3 is Pathfinder adventure card game. I kind of talked about this recently. This is just I just picked the first one, Rise of the Rune Lords, because that's definitely fantasy. Now they have a bunch of different other box sets that maybe I like more or less, but for the most part they give you a similar huge adventure feeling. You're going around, you're trying to like fight the bad guys, corner them, defeat them, and then you move into like the next part of the story. So each game that you play is like the next like scenario for your adventure, and a game is last like an hour, so it goes pretty quickly once you
awesome.
like get in there. And so each game, if you play the full like 6 levels of 6 stories each, it'll be about, I don't know, 20 games total or something. And so as you go, you're gonna find different weapons and armor and things like that. And at the end of each scenario, you're going to actually customize your deck, because you can only hold so many cards in your deck. And so if you find a better sword than the one you have, you get to like, okay, now I'm going to throw away that old sword and have this new sword. So you're leveling up your character as you go through each, scenario in the gameplay. And so you're constantly getting better. You might get a reward of like a stat. So you might get to increase, your strength or something. So now you have +1 strength, and you're going to be rolling these dice to try and beat these monsters. And it's really cool. It's really, really cool. It's honestly not something that I've ever, thought I would ever enjoy. But you know what? Here we are. I'm totally addicted. I love it.
I love that. I love the way that it goes about the idea of, leveling up and getting, new weapons, and the fact that you customize your decks. You don't just have this, ungodly amount of cards.
Yes.
You just get better stuff. Is really cool, because that's like, oh, I fought this battle. This thing, they left this spear. I'm gonna pick up that spear and carry on. It's very realistic to this grand adventure. It's a really cool idea, and I love that for you. It was this kind of wonderful surprise, So Pathfinder, there's a ton of stuff for it, and go kind of different directions and stuff. So that's our number 4.
Number 3.
Dang,
Wrong.
I never know.
Shame, Mike and Chat.
I knew staying 4 was wrong. I thought number 3.
Number
We're going
3.
to Board Game Geek's number 2. So number 2 from Board Game Geek is ranked number 12 overall, and it is Spirit Island. You are controlling spirits.
Again, this is one where I didn't really think of it as a fantasy, but I'm like, oh yeah, it totally is, because you're sentient, sentient
spirits,
elements,
inhabiting
kind
this
of
island,
elementals,
casting out these invaders.
So we've played Spirit Island. You've played it once or twice. I've played it once. This is a game that, again, kind of it's got such a learning curve. Now, one thing that's good about this is it's co-op. So if you're on a learning curve, you're playing with other people. But this is a game that is so heavy and deep that I'm just I will just never play this game enough to get good at it. So I've never been a massive fan of it, because I'm always it's just too much.
Yeah, it's so cool though. It is heavy.
It's very cool, yeah.
I finally played it enough times to kind of get what I was getting at. Now it's been a long time since then that I've played, so I'm probably back at square one. But it's just super neat. It's just such a cool idea. Yeah. One of the coolest ideas I think ever.
Yeah. Steph, do you like Spirit Island?
I played it once with 3 people who really love the game. So I really should have loved the game, but I didn't really get there. But now I do own it because I want to give it another shot. But it is another one of those big games, kind of like Root, where you need to learn the different factions and stuff and learn all the different things that are going on. So it's a lot.
Yeah, it's not an easy one to get into. It's not super accessible, because it's the things you can do are really neat, but it is heavy. It is strategic. It's complicated. And so that's the only bummer about it. The only kind of negative mark I can give it is it's just not easy to get into. But if you can get there, there's a lot to glean. There's a lot of reward. But will we ever play it enough to get to that point?
I won't. I know I won't.
don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. It's just tough to get.
We have it as well. We're keeping it because I'm it's such a cool idea, and I believe that we can get there. I just don't know
when we're retired. We'll play it enough.
Yeah, someday.
Yeah, when we're retired, when we're 60, we'll play it. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember these days.
I remember these days.
But that's number 2 from Board Game Geek, ranked number 12 overall. So let's go ahead and get our number 2.
Our number 2 is actually funny, because our number 3 was Pathfinder, which was at 454. Now our number 2 is at 455. in case you're wondering.
Oh,
Wow, that's hard to do.
It is Nidavellir. It has won my heart over. I love
It's
it.
so good.
It's amazing.
It's so good.
Nidavellir is fantastic. It's such a wonderfully simple game,
Yeah.
really. But it's you're just dwarves and it's doing set collection. It's so good. Steph, tell us why you love it so much.
So it's funny because I'm like, oh, Nidavellir, that's fantasy, and I came directly to dwarves and fantasy, but not with Caverna somehow. I don't know how.
Right?
But
Yeah.
don't worry about it.
It's the farming. The farming throws you off, I swear.
Yeah.
The farming, it's the farming. So, Nidavellir is great new card drafting / tableau building. You're trying to get these sets of these different 5 factions, and you will be doing these with these little round coins. You have 5 of these coins. One of them is a 0, which will upgrade the leftover 2 coins. So if you use the 0 out in the bidding process for the 3 taverns, when that 0 pops up, you're going to translate the 2 that aren't in play into a new coin. So you're leveling up your coins to try and gain these bigger coins so you can bid on these taverns. The highest coin will win the bid. You'll get first pick at the different card in the tavern. So if you really see something you want to have a higher coin so you can get what you need. And you're trying to make these sets of each color. If you get one, then you can create a hero. And the hero will have these amazing abilities or different powers, and so you're like, oh, everything's already out there, so you can already see what's out there, and you're like, I want this one, and I gotta get my hero now before the other players can get it before me. And so you're doing this, and everybody else is trying to do the same thing, so you're trying to outwit them to get what you need. And at the end, after, depending on how many people are playing, definitely 2 phases, 3 or 4 rounds at each phase, and you're just going to add up all the points depending on how each faction scores and how well you did in each column. It's awesome.
So
it's so good.
So
And
good.
I'm like, the first time I played, I'm like, wow, this is really pretty cool game. I didn't really get into it until it was on BGA, Board Game Arena.
Yeah.
And
it's good on
I just
BGA
was
too,
like
yeah.
playing it all the time, and I just want
Yeah.
to keep playing it. And
It's so
it
good.
could
It's
very well
so
be
fast.
my
Yeah.
game of the year. I'm not going to say it is, but
that
at this
right?
point, I
Wow.
love it. Love it.
That's
so
good. And I love the art. It's like the black and white kind of dwarf art. It just looks
So
really
good.
cool. And it's just so fast. It just
Yeah.
works. It's so good.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's really a simple set collection game ultimately with that bidding. But the thing I love is everything is worth points. Everything's worth a lot of points.
Yeah.
You feel like you're just this god.
Yeah, by the end of the game,
gaming.
you have 200, 300 points.
Yeah.
It's insane. Yeah.
It's really cool. But yeah, the fact that each of the 5 dwarf types score differently, and it really is better if you can specialize in 1 or 2 types and get a lot of them to get a lot of points. But if you get all the different colors, that's how you get the heroes, which might unlock lots of opportunities. So
Yeah,
you're
it's
just
just pulling
pulled
you, yeah.
in those 2 different directions. And then the coins, you get, like Steph said, those upgraded coins, but they're also worth points on their
That's
own.
so
So it's
good.
just,
It's so good.
yeah, it's awesome. And
I
it is on
really
Board Game
like it.
Arena, works super well. Highly recommend you try it over there. It's a winner. It's a great,
Yeah.
beautiful game. Beautifully simple, easy to play, and just freaking fun.
Yeah, it's just fun.
You know?
Straight up fun.
That's why it's our
Just
number 2,
fun.
everybody. Nidavellir. Love it. Want to play it more. But let's go ahead and get into Board Game Geek's number 1. Joke's on you. Board Game Geek's number 1 is everyone's number 1.
Everyone's.
It's actually 2. It's Gloomhaven and Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion.
Because Gloomhaven Jaws, they would have been number
Yeah.
1 and 2, so we just made them 1.
Made them 1. So all of
So
the
Blood Rage
Gloomhaven-
isn't on this list. It's number 11.
Yeah, technically.
Get wrecked.
Only technically.
Get wrecked, Blood Rage
So
fans.
Gloomhaven is all of our number 1. We agree it's number 1, and it's simply because
It's good.
Gloomhaven is good, obviously.
It's great.
But it's kind of, while being unique factions and everything
Yeah.
like that, it's kind of feels classic fantasy, dungeon crawling. It's this huge adventure, so it feels grand in scope, like a Lord of the Rings. There's so much stuff to explore. You're leveling up characters like Pathfinder. You're unlocking secrets and stuff like Great Legacy games. It kind of has just it's number 1 for a reason.
Yeah, it is. It's number 1 and 2 for a reason.
Yeah. So, what do y'all like about Gloomhaven?
I mean, we've talked about it multiple times. I love Gloomhaven. I think it's incredibly
It's so cool.
fun. It's one of those games that you just get legitimately better at as
Yeah.
you play it.
You
And
get
that's
better, your character
very
gets better.
satisfying. Yeah, it's just good. And then you haven't played it, but I've played through Jaws of the Lion,
Yes.
and I think Jaws of the Lion was outstanding. It's still just Gloomhaven. It's not really different, but I also thought that was great. It's just wonderful. And Steph, I know you love, especially Jaws of the Lion, I think you love a lot.
Yeah, I mean, so when Gloomhaven came out, I first played it. I'm like, wow, it's a lot. I liked it. I could see the potential there, but I never really dove into it. So I just played a few of the entry level scenarios. And so when Jaws of the Lion came out, I really got into that, and it's like so much more accessible, easy to get into. So highly recommend Jaws of the Lion if you're just starting out with the Gloomhaven universe.
Yes.
I really, really, really like it. So once I finish Jaws of the Lion, then I can jump into the Gloomhaven again and like get that full experience.
Awesome. Yeah. Jaws of the Lion is a great way to get into it. It takes you through how the whole game works in an organic way as you play. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, and it's just Gloomhaven. It's just like...
It's beautiful, though. I mean, it's like one of the coolest things ever. Like, here's this big, heavy thing, but let me show you how this works and make it very accessible.
It's kind of like a video game where it's like... One thing that's nice about video games, and video games have over board games, is video games can teach you the game while you're playing it. It's like, oh, now you're near this ledge. Press this, and you can jump up the ledge.
You can reset it and practice it.
And this is kind of nice because you're like, hey, here's these 5 first scenarios. They're going to very slowly and incrementally teach you the game. So by the time you're done, you know how to play. And I'm like, that's really useful for a game like Gloomhaven.
Yeah, because there's a lot to know.
Yeah.
So that's why it's everyone's number one. It's just the greatest achievement in fantasy board gaming ever, or most people say in any board game ever. It's just great. There's a lot to explore. So that's our list. That's Board Game Geek's list done. I think great games. There's plenty more games that could be categorized as fantasy. So we want to know from you at home, what are your favorite fantasy board games? Whether that is kind of classic fantasy, whatever that means, or animals working jobs. We had a lot of like fantasy, but it's just like, I'm working a job in this weird world. We got libraries, we got farmers.
Why not?
You know, we've got dungeon pet shop
dwarves
owners.
can work a Jamba Juice. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Making a sludgy. They don't have Slurpees there. Sludgies there.
Of
But,
course,
it's fantasy. But let us know your favorite fantasy games in the comments below.
Yeah.
Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it.
And let us know what other topics you'd want to see us cover. I think that's it.
I think that's it. Well, I guess until next time, I've been Mike.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Steph.
We'll see you in the next list, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.